Oui, donc bonjour tout le monde et merci de bienvenue dans notre channel. Et mon channel s'appelle Frenchy with Karen. And in today's channel, we will specifically focus on the idea of le passé composé. So if you've been following my channel quite frequently, you should be knowing that in my previous channel, I have already discussed about the idea of le passé composé. And I wanted to make sure that we understand the foundation really well, which is why I wanted to go through from the basics and the idea of conjugating various different verbs with the idea of le passé composé. Now, if you don't know what le passé composé is, that's completely fine because you can visit my micro lesson, which you would be able to find the link to in the description below, or you can click in the I button, which you would be able to find above this video. Now, moving straight into the video, there is a series of different things that I want to mention. And before I begin, make sure to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share with all of your friends and family who might be interested to learn French. So, for different verbs, for example, the first group will be ER. Now, if you find it difficult to catch up with my words, that's completely okay because you'd be able to find some of my teaching materials on the left-hand side of this video. So, ER verbs are a very common sort of regular verbs you would be able to find in the French language. For example, manger, chanter, marcher. So, marcher is the idea to walk. Chanter, the idea of sing, and danser, the idea of dancing. So all of these verbs end with the idea of ER. And when they end with the idea of ER, you want to be able to add the accent. So you remove the ER and then you will insert the E with the accent. And then if you haven't watched my previous videos, make sure to be able to watch those. And that's really going to help you better understand and gain a better motivation on the idea of le passé composé. So I want to mention that the second group of verb I would say is the IR verb. So when you have the IR verb, for example, finir or venir, revenir, then you want to remove the IR and you want to insert the I inside and remove the IR. For example, the third group of verb is RE. For example, vendre. In vendre, you want to remove the RE and you want to insert the U. Now, these are all the regulations that should follow for any regular French verbs. However, mind you, there are some verbs that are irregular and they may stand quite differently. So it's very important for you to differentiate between the regular and also the irregular verbs. Now, there's a certain things that I want to mention. For example, the auxiliary and the past participle. Now, the past participle is something that I just discussed. So when you have an ER verb, you remove the ER and you add the E with the accent. When you have the IR verb, you remove the IR and you add the I. When you have an RE verb, you remove the RE and you add the U at the end. So these are some of like the rules for any past participle of a regular verb. However, let's say if it's an irregular one, of course the endings would be significantly quite different and they have different rules to follow. Now, the auxiliary verb is generally made up of avoir or être. Now, if it's être, you want to make sure that you follow the Dr. Mrs. Vandertrent list, which comprises of about 16 movement verbs, and the reflexive verbs. So when you have the Dr. Mrs. Vandertrent verbs, or let's say the reflexive verbs, you use the auxiliary être. Whereas the other verbs will all follow the idea of avoir. So that's very important to differentiate if the verb is a movement verb or if the verb is not a movement verb. And to be able to understand it, you want to do lots and lots of different practices. Now, when you have être as the auxiliary verb, there's certain different rules that you need to be able to really remind yourself. You have to think, if it's a feminine verb, is it a plural verb? Is it a feminine and plural verb? So what type of verb is it? Do you want to add the E? Do you want to add the S? Or do you want to add the ES? That is a very sort of important reminder. The next thing, for example, danser. So danser is the idea to dance. So if you wanted to conjugate that, you'll say j'ai dansé, tu as dansé, il a dansé, nous avons dansé, vous avez dansé, ils ont dansé. Sortir is to leave. For example, j'ai sorti, tu es sorti, il est sorti, nous avons sorti, vous avez sorti, ils ont sorti. Ils sont sortis. Okay, so for danser, we use the auxiliary avoir, but then for sortir, we use être. Now, why did we use être for sortir? Because it's a movement verb. However, danser is not a movement verb according to our Mrs. Vandertrump list, which is why we will make use of avoir. Now, in this video, I've tried to conclude all the major things that I could about le passé composé, and I hope that has helped you to a significant amount of extent. If this video proved to be very helpful for you, do make sure to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and share it with your friends and families as much as possible. Until then, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!